with some more details. And you can take your place in whatever you like. It's up to you. It's very flexible. This is a clicker. Okay, I'm passing to you.
So I'm very excited to be here. I have been a professor of strategy for many years, and for the past 5 years I'm also an economist a senior economist in the Bank of Canada. And I need to start by saying that anything that I will say here are my own views, and they do not represent the position of Bank of Canada. And that said, I have been doing a lot of research on blockchain and cryptocurrencies and digital currencies before, and I have been observing this space for a very long time. So it is a very interesting and very quickly evolving space. When I was writing my book on digital currencies in 2015, we were not talking about blockchain yet. And the moment it actually hit the shelves, it was already all about blockchain. So very quickly changing environment. So as we are here, we are not a random group of people, and we are all familiar with blockchain. And we often hear it called the technology behind Bitcoin. And we held a lot of promise from this technology that is promising us a public, permissionless, decentralized ledger that cryptography assures immutability. And when we say immutability, we say the blockchain is not going to be changed. That means that it is secure. Immutability, in this sense, is equivalent with security of the records. And we can do all this without the need for a trusted third party. And on the top of that, this technology allows for smart contracts. And there's a lot of promise. We expect it to improve financial inclusion. We expect it to decentralize a lot of services and a lot of markets. A lot of talk about it yesterday. We expect it to lower costs. And how would it happen? Is that it would allow for quicker, safer, and transparent transactions. Transparency is another thing that we expect from blockchain. And the centralized system would allow us to cut out the middleman, the disintermediation. The fact that it is permissionless would allow anyone to have access to it. So this is what would improve the inclusion in whatever services. Great stuff. And there have been a lot of talk about it yesterday. I don't have direct quotes, so let me rely on a couple from Financial Times that are representative about what we think and what we hope of blockchain. So blockchain is the electronic ledger originally built to underpin Bitcoin markets, the Bitcoin underlying technology. Promoters say that it will lead to cheaper, more secure ways in settling all kinds of transactions. We want to take it, of course, beyond Bitcoin. It's, by the way, how my book is called, Beyond Bitcoin, very nicely. So another quote is, blockchain is an electronic ledger of transactions that are continuously maintained in blocks of records. What gets its developers, investors, and funds, so I guess all of us here, so excited, however, is that ledgers are jointly held and run by all participants. It is meant to be cryptographically secure to prevent anyone being able to manipulate records, and any records, not just financial records, such as who voted for whom and who owns a bank account. So as we call these great promises, I need the next slide. And okay. As we are all talking and hoping for all those benefits of blockchain, for increased security, faster transactions, shared ledger, and therefore elimination of intermediaries, the applications that we have been developing for the past 2 years have not clearly demonstrated any of those benefits. And yes, we can easily say that we are at the very forefront of the new technology. We are at the beginning, we're just learning, we're just getting there. But I think what is also happening is that we are running in circles between the arguments that we are making and the applications that we are actually trying to produce. Because we are not really clear on what blockchain is, and we are mixing up concepts. And if we are doing so, we are basically running and pulling in different directions, and therefore we are not getting very far. If we are calling mountains a beach and we are trying to climb Mount Everest in flip-flops, we shouldn't be surprised it's taking so long. I think there's a way to speed it up if we are really careful about defining what we mean when we are using the word blockchain and we're talking about blockchain. Because even yesterday, in many of the panels, people would be using word blockchain to mean very different things. And then we cannot really easily agree and move forward. So in this particular example of looking for lowering costs and sources of lowering costs, we are mixing up at least 3 different concepts, and they are separate concepts. One is encryption or cryptography. Cryptography is an application of encryption. And this is very closely related to security of transactions, security of keeping data. The second one is automated execution of transactions, which would provide much faster dealings in many of the applications that we want to use. And the third one is distributed ledger, which is a type of distributed database. Those concepts are separate. So if those 3 concepts are separate, what is blockchain? Is it all of them? Is it a combination of it? Is it any combination of it? When we say blockchain, what do we mean? So what I'm going to say here as a definition of blockchain, and this may be a working definition, happy to change, but let's be clear what we mean by blockchain. Is in this context, I will call blockchain a distributed ledger of transaction. Distributed ledger of transaction, what does that mean? This is a type of distributed database that keeps the history of all the transactions rather than just balances. That is a different thing, right? And it will have different roles depending how we define it. A distributed database or distributed ledger has been developed a long time ago in computer science, and it is a type of a database where multiple parties can change entries in the database. Multiple parties in the sense can add transactions. And those changes are reflected consistently across all the nodes, all the parties participating in this distributed database. So this is what distributed database is. The ledger is a type of a database, and the one that keeps all the transactions, this is what I will call blockchain. Notice that this definition of blockchain allows for permission blockchains, does not say it's permissionless. And in fact, not every distributed ledger can be made secure without a trusted third party. Of course, we can alternatively define blockchain as the one that does not require trusted third parties, but then this will be a far too restricted definition, and I want to be as broad here as possible. So before I move forward to talk about blockchain, let me step back and have just one slide on a little bit of a background. So distributed databases have been developed since 1970s. This is not as new as 2008. And distributed databases have been very important for all sorts of internet applications. And what is important is that all traditional distributed databases need a trusted third party. Does not mean that the trusted third party is needed to do all the changes in the database. The nodes can be equal. However, there needs to be an entity that gives permission. We never had before permissionless distributed database. So somebody needs to give permissions and vet nodes to participate in distributed database, needs to track activity, maybe police misbehavior, and dispute resolutions. The challenge in cryptography since around 80s was, as part of the distributed databases, was how to create a decentralized digital currency. And this has been a challenge because this would require to solve a double spending problem in a permissionless distributed database where anyone has access to this database. So, and there is no trusted third party to police anyone around. And it has been considered to be a cryptography problem, just solely cryptography problem. There have been many attempts to solve it. There was a bit called Bcash and Hashcash, and it's okay if you don't really remember those names because they have never really seen, the application of it has never seen the light of day. It was only Bitcoin system in 2008, developed by Nakamoto, that really solved the question of permissionless distributed database and solving the double spending problem. The key element that he used they used to solve the issue is they said it's not only cryptography. What we need is an incentive system. And this incentive system is actually preventing the double spending issue, not the cryptography itself. So I'm not going to go into how Bitcoin works. You probably know how Bitcoin works. But I want to emphasize a few points. First, the cryptography elements that are used in Bitcoin's blockchain, in Bitcoin's system, are very simple, and they have been known for years before Bitcoin. So yes, there's a public-private key, which is like a digital signature that we all use when we log into our bank accounts. There's a hashing function used in mining to solve a puzzle. So when you are, the key element is that when miners are solving puzzles, they're wasting energy. They're wasting computational power, they're wasting the cost of energy, they're wasting the hardware is not used for anything. We have heard a lot about waste around Bitcoin. The key thing is, as they are competing to solve the puzzle, they are solving two things. One, the winner is going to be the guy who is going to know the computer who is going to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain. And this is going to give the power to add the block of transactions. So it's not that anyone can come in and write into the blockchain. And it's not permissionless in this sense. It's permissionless in the sense that anyone can stand up and participate in the tournament to win the right to write into the database. So this is a one key element that was solved. But the second one is exactly because it is so costly and it's a wasted effort to add the block to win the tournament and add the block of transactions to the blockchain. This is exactly what makes it fraud resistant. Because now, if you want to go back and change one of the older transactions, you need to redo all this work and spend all this money, not only for the one block that you want to change, but for all the blocks subsequently. And this basically makes it not worthwhile. It makes it not economical. It's not that it's technically impossible. It is technically possible. It's just quite unlikely, and it costs a lot of money. So this is what we get. We get a distributed ledger blockchain as the result of Bitcoin's system. And because of the way the system is set up, the Bitcoin's blockchain is virtually immutable, which means for all practical purposes, it's immutable, not technologically impossible to change. Does not require trusted third party to be secure, immutable. It's permissionless in the sense that anyone can attend and participate in the tournament, and it's public because everyone can see all the transactions in the blockchain. Now, if you think that I have shortchanged the Bitcoin system, then here is what Nakamoto is saying. is that we propose a system for electronic transactions without relying on trusted third parties. We started with the usual framework of coins made from digital signature, which prevents strong control of ownership, but it is incomplete without a way to prevent double spending. Cryptography alone is not fixing a problem. To solve this, we propose a peer-to-peer network using proof of work to record the public history of transactions that quickly becomes computationally and economically impractical for an attacker to change if honest nodes control a majority of CPU power. So we kind of know that 51% attack. Now that means that the properties of the Bitcoin's blockchain is, first of all, the cryptography is pretty usual. The security is provided through incentives, and it's not 100% proof, only for all practical purposes. It's permissionless in the sense that you can only attempt, but not everybody gets the right to write in it. But there's no need for trusted third party. This is the benefit that we are getting from the system. But we get all those properties of blockchain, Bitcoin's blockchain, only because it's a part of Bitcoin's system. It's not really an underlying technology of Bitcoin. It's an outcome of a Bitcoin system. And I think it is important to understand as we are looking forward to, as we are looking for new applications of blockchain. So mining is important in the Bitcoin system to provide security without trusted third party. And yes, of course, we want to take blockchain forward outside of Bitcoin. But now the extrapolation that many people make is that any blockchain is going to have these properties. It's going to be distributed, secure, public, permissionless, and without any need for trusted third party. It's any blockchain, because this is the technology, right? But this is not true. If you take out the native cryptocurrency, the Bitcoins, Litecoins, or Ether, if you take out the native cryptocurrencies, it's changing the incentives in the system. And incentives were crucial to provide security. So if you are changing the incentives, you are going to change the properties of the blockchain. So what will the blockchain be if you want to take it outside of Bitcoin? Now, note also that smart contracts are not part of Bitcoin's blockchain. And I'm going to say a couple of words about it. Cryptography is simple and a small part of providing security. So why is it important to distinguish smart contracts, cryptography, and distributed ledger? Because all three of them are providing very different benefits. They are used and they are beneficial in different situations. But what is even more important is that they can be implemented independently. Blockchain requires some amount of cryptography, but really to take full advantage of the newest and the best solutions in cryptography and to really make data really secure, we don't need the blockchain. There are just different solutions. So quite famously, after the Bangladeshi Federal Reserve scandal in 2016, when Bangladeshi money was stolen from Bangladesh Federal Reserve account, a lot of very large companies started to really worry about their security and the security of their own servers. And Goldman Sachs, now CFO, Martin, now CEO, we remember, famously said, we need to treat all computers hostile. They started to work with Amazon to work on making the cloud services as secure as possible, to increase security, to increase encryption. And in January of this year, he basically said, now we are indifferent between using the Amazon Web Services for our financial data storage and all the services, or using our own computers, because all computers should be considered hostile. There are no safe computers. Now, this is a really, really qualitative change in approach of large companies to security, to cybersecurity. But this solution did not need blockchain. Another one is smart contracts. Smart contracts are great, and smart contracts are automatically executed transactions based on some external triggers. But without calling that this way, we have been using it longer than the blockchain has been around. And in fact, smart contracts have been named smart contracts in 1997 by Nick Szabo, 12 years before Bitcoin. So how are we using the smart contracts? Well, limit orders are smart contracts because those are conditional contracts that are automatically executed where price gets to some value. When you are setting automated billing on your bank account, where on the particular date money goes from one account to another, it is a smart contract. Smart contracts are hugely beneficial, but we need to think about how we are going to apply these solutions. So what are the benefits of distributed ledger? They are huge, and they may save a lot of money because they are the most beneficial. Distributed ledgers are most beneficial where the reconciliation of contradictory ledgers is costly. So if you think about different institutions dealing with each other and making sure that whatever trade is happening, it has been recorded on both, and if it doesn't happen, if there's an error, there's huge losses, then this is where we can save a lot of money. This is when we can make things faster. And also, if we need real-time copies in different locations, this is where distributed databases and distributed ledgers are very important, very useful. Now notice that for those uses, it is not necessary for the distributed ledger to be public or permissionless. And we also need to remember about costs. Distributed ledgers have costs. First of all, just because they are distributed, we actually need to reconcile them. And reconciling consensus mechanisms always take time. They are never instantaneous. They need to be replicated and stored, and especially if you think about storing the whole Ethereum ledger, it becomes burdensome and it's going to grow. So it is a problem. You need to, when you're searching a ledger, just a database, you need to search a database of everyone, not just yourself. And there are other costs. I want to emphasize one, the loss of information privacy. So sometimes it's considered to be a benefit, but there may also be costs if you lose privacy. You may be actually showing your trade secrets, which you may not want to do. If you have access to a lot of information of your competitors, you may be subject to antitrust suit. It creates dangerous situations. May not always be beneficial. So we have higher expectations from blockchain, right? We don't just want it to be a distributed database. We want it to be permissionless, public, distributed, immutable, and without the need for trusted third party, and to be applied in settings other than cryptocurrencies. The problem is that so far it has proven to be a challenge. Right? First of all, there are a number of problems if we want to do this permissionless distributed ledger outside of cryptocurrencies. And this is, the information needs to get on the blockchain. If you want to use blockchain for information and for anything else that was born on the blockchain, right? Because cryptocurrencies are born on the blockchain and live on the blockchain. If you want to use it for anything else, information needs to get on the blockchain. We need some trusted entity to put information on the blockchain. For execution of smart contract, we need to trust the oracles to put information, to continuously put information in the blockchain. Right? So if you think about using blockchain for real estate ledger and real estate records, well, how are all those real estate parcels going to get on the blockchain? And then there's a problem of how are you going to assure immutability of the blockchain. If you have assets from outside of the blockchain, they change incentives of the miners, for example, or the attacker to attack the blockchain and to provide alternative history to fraud it. Now, if you put $10 million, $100 million houses on the blockchain, now this makes it much more worthwhile to keep attacking. And we said that the blockchain is, so far, it is not just technologically assured to be secure and immutable. It's the incentives. By putting more assets, you're changing the incentives. So you're changing the security structure. And then the question is, who is going to offset it and make it worthwhile to defend the blockchain and to mine and to be the honest node? So the bottom line is that so far, we don't really have a technology that would offer us a permissionless distributed ledger that cryptographically assures immutability without the need of trusted third party. It's not really about the technology underlying Bitcoin. It's a little bit more complicated. And we are searching for solutions. But so far, we shouldn't be just so easy-handed on saying we're just going to apply it. We don't really know what is the technology we want to apply. So far, it has mostly been solved by using permission blockchains. So we have all the applications that we have right now functioning or almost functioning are based on permission blockchains. Now, if you think that the major innovation of blockchain was to create a permissionless distributed ledger as opposed to existing permissioned databases, the distributed databases, then permission blockchains go against the whole blockchain innovation. But nonetheless, those are very, very interesting applications. And maybe what we need to do is to think very carefully about what attributes we need for particular applications. Is it that, we always will want to have an immutable database because nobody wants to deal with a database that keeps changing and it's not secure. This is forgiven. But do we really need permissionless? For which applications we need permissionless? And we need public, we need distributed. Do we really need to get rid of trusted third party? Maybe we want to change the role of trusted third party. And then maybe it will be much easier for us to think about which technology we actually want to use. What is also important is that we need to think about why we do not have all those properties right now. Is for a particular application. Is it that we don't have technology, or is it that there are some other reasons like regulation or maybe just economics? Maybe intermediaries provide services that are useful and therefore may not be easily substituted and may not be easily eliminated. So to finish, as we are looking into the future of blockchain, we are looking into a lot of promising applications, and we are discussing what are the best use cases. What I would say is that what would help speed up looking forward to the applications and building the applications is to be clear about the many directions that we can take. Clear about the attributes that we seek for a particular instance of the technology. Clear about the benefits we expect. And also be aware of the downsides, in particular costs, and whether it is going to really get us there. And with that, I think we can better identify existing or develop not yet existing right technology for the right application. Thank you.
Longest applause ever in this conference. So we have space just for 2 questions. We
take questions afterwards as well.
Yeah, yes, of course, there will be break for questions. So we checked who among academics has most cited in academic publications, and Hanna is one of the most cited academics. Okay, just 2 questions.
That was an excellent presentation. The question that I'm having, which is a struggle that I have in understanding the fact that the blockchain is a limitless platform for recording transactions between entities, but the incentive given to the parties to basically validate those transactions is limited. Bitcoin, at the end of the day, has 21 million Bitcoins outstanding, and basically mining effectively means that you're actually getting an incentive from the community to validate those transactions. So what happens once all the Bitcoins are actually used up and given out to miners or buyers, but the transactional process of recording on the blockchain will go beyond the 21 million usage. So then what happens to the sanctity of the blockchain beyond that 21 million usage? Do you understand my question?
Yes, yes.
It's a limitless platform with finite incentives. It's not a limitless platform with limitless incentives.
So there, I mean, what I was describing here is how Bitcoin works and where we took the notion of what we expect blockchain to be. There's a lot of work in computer science and in economics as well, showing that at the end of mining, we actually may run into big trouble with assuring stability of Bitcoin's blockchain, because it may not provide enough incentives. Fees, for a number of reasons, fees may not provide enough incentives for stability of blockchain, may provide incentives to keep mining, but the mining may not be as reliable as it is right now with block rewards. There's a number of voices saying that we should actually, if Bitcoin wants to stay stable beyond even, we don't need to wait for 2140 when the mining is completely over, but even when the mining is very, very small, or the block reward is very small, we shouldn't stop, we should not go all the way to zero mining. And in fact, there are other cryptocurrencies that pointed, because this has been pointed out in 2014, 2013, 2014, and there are other cryptocurrencies that actually would allow for infinite mining. So, for example, Peercoin, after reaching a certain limit of coins, would keep increasing the supply of coins by 1% a year. So there are alternative designs. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is the best design. What I was saying here is that miners are incentivized through the blockchain to really put a lot of effort and waste this energy to keep the blockchain secure. And if we want to move outside of cryptocurrencies, then we need to figure out a different way to incentivize miners to keep or whatever other entities would be, to keep the security of the blockchain. And it's not trivial.
Okay, so thanks a lot. Thank you. There will be opportunity to talk during breaks. So, and now we have a pop-up presentation from AL. His presentation